What's up, everybody? Derek Anderson, the DA. Man, it's a hot one. Hope you guys are staying cool out there today. Let's take a look at this article, CNN, When Wokeness Comes to Middle-earth, Why Some Say Diverse Casting Ruins the New Lord of the Rings series. So this is, of course, again, about Rings of Power. The fallout continues because, there's a lot going on with this particular show. And in my reviews, you notice I didn't really touch on the whole racial issue, and I won't. I'll actually just review the show as a show. It's a bad show anyway. I can just review it as a show, but talking about the racial issues that are happening with the diverse casting is, wrinkling a lot of feathers and making some people really upset. Let's go ahead and just kind of check out what this guy says. He looks like a black guy, at least. John Blake from CNN. And this article, as most of these comments, are just very disconnected from the real world and how people really live and how things really are, okay? And let's go ahead and just check out what he has to say about it. So he starts off by talking about this guy, Brandon Morse, who he says is a deputy managing editor of Red State, a conservative news site. And he says the Ring of Power's producers have cast non-white actors in a story based on European culture and who look wildly different from how Tolkien originally described them. He says it's an attempt to embed social justice politics into Tolkien's world. I think it's even worse than that. And we've already had this conversation, but the diversity that's going on in this just kind of points to the larger issue. It's not just Hollywood's fascination with trying to fix racism by constantly playing this race card, but it's also their disbelief in the original created Black, Latino, and Asian characters. Like, they don't like that, right? They don't like you looking at this original character. They want to take a character that has been traditionally white or should be white or something like that, and they want to inject a new race, a new skin color on that person, thinking that that somehow is conquering the problem. And it's like this gentleman says, if you focus on introducing modern political sentiments such as the leftist obsession with identity issues that only go skin deep, then you're no longer focusing on building a good story. Very true. He wrote this impassioned essay. You're effectively making propaganda or art to fit a message and not a message to fit the art. Very, very true with both of those. But, it's worse than that. It's actually worse than even what he's saying. It's just flat out racism. That's really what it is. It's, some people call it reverse racism. Some people call it, just skin coloring, whitewashing, blackwashing, whatever you want to call it. It's all bad. It's all bad. None of this stuff is any good. It doesn't solve any problems, okay? Like, in their tiny brains, the best way to attack racism is just to force racial diversity into the narrative, right? It's like I said before, the problem is in Hollywood, okay? The problem is there's racism in Hollywood and they're trying to address it in some kind of weird way instead of actually dealing and tackling the racism. They are the racists, not the fans, okay? They are trying to fix their problems through their TV shows and their films, right? Oh, we'll just put some black people in here. Like, that doesn't fix the problem, right? If you want to attack racism, you got to start with, first of all, if you want to attack racism and you want to really deal with it, you deal with that at home, all right? You deal with it by raising your kids the way that they need to be raised, right? You talk to your neighbors, you talk to your families, you talk to people in your community, okay? That's where racism is going to get fixed. Not on the big screen watching Lord of the Rings or whatever. No, that's not the way it's going to work. Like I tell my kids, hey, guys, pay attention to the person, okay? Don't look at their skin color. Pay attention to the person and not the nationality, not the skin color. The person, the individual that's across from you that you're dealing with, deal with that person. If that person's a racist, deal with them accordingly. But if he's just a normal person, just treat him like a normal person. But look past skin color, look past all of this other stuff and just deal with people. That's what they should be doing. But they want to, fix it somehow in their stupid films. And even if you wanted to make a movie that's like tackling the issues of racism, then make that movie, okay? Don't try to insert gender issues and racial issues into a storyline that has absolutely nothing to do with that. Go and make a movie about racism. That's fine. I think most people would be like, okay, I know what I'm coming to get. I'm getting told about, some kind of racial issues. You're going to see a television show that's tackling that issue and they're going deep. They're not just going skin deep. They're going way deep. Again, people are not tackling the problems. We've seen this with racial quotas, okay? Forced diversity doesn't fix racism any more than like giving poor people money fixes poverty. Okay? You guys are just doing everything ass backwards. But anyway, and then this guy says, because Lord of the Rings fans are notoriously opinionated about all things Middle Earth, a debate can get heated. Some fans are even questioning if Tolkien was a racist. This again is just people that are just trying to justify their emotions with BS, okay? They're just creating stuff out of thin air. They don't really understand Tolkien if they're saying that this guy is a racist. Then he goes on here, some people say fantasy stories have reinforced the notion that all heroes are white men. It says here, Middle-earth is not history, it's fantasy. Horan says he grew up in the United Kingdom during an era when it was common for popular shows to offer blatantly racist and anti-Semitic depictions of Jewish and black people. It's not being woke to say, no, that's not acceptable anymore. This is simply being sensible, courteous, and empathetic. That's not what we're talking about in this situation. Nobody is offering any kind of a bad depiction of a black person or anything like that in this particular show. This clash is part of a larger debate about including non-white LGBTQ and other non-traditional characters in fantasy and science fiction stories. Critics say the fantasy and science fiction world has long normalized the notion that only white men can be the hero and in charge. This argument is so disingenuous and just steeped in emotionalism at this point. You know, it really is. Like, fantasy stories were mostly written by white men. I think George R.R. Martin was talking about this. Like, fantasy stories were mostly written by white men, okay? When this particular genre was largely ignored by pretty much everyone non-white, somehow it survived. On the backs of white men writing it, white people buying it. That's just the way it went, okay? Like, I remember back in high school when I was playing D&D, like, most of the people that were in there were not black. There were like, I was the only black guy in there, and there was maybe like a couple of Latino cats. Everybody else was a white dude, okay? The sponsor, the class sponsor was a white guy, and then when I went to college, it was even more so. All right, it was like, man, it's like no black people up in here, but I like D&D and I'm playing. That's the thing that just doesn't make sense to me. Like, of course they're gonna put more of their culture. They're basing it on medieval European culture. Who would you expect to be in this show? Who would you expect to be the heroes? It's just stupid. And I'm not saying that like a white author couldn't write a story with the black hero, all right? But it's being that they are making this fantasy story based on medieval Europe, right? It just stands the reason that they would have medieval characters that are white. I mean, I don't know, like, that's the vast majority of the people that were living during that time or in that time. It just stands to reason that white people would be the focal point. I don't see why this is controversial at all. I don't see why this is a problem. Just like if a black man wrote a fantasy story about African mythology and African fantasy stuff, I would expect that would be, you know, helmed by a black hero. You know, a black hero would be the one pushing the story forward. That's what I would expect. I wouldn't expect a black author writing about African stuff to put white people up front and have a white hero. It just wouldn't make sense to me. So why would you expect the opposite to be true? It's just dumb. But then that brings me to this. What's the difference here? Okay, now I'm old enough to remember when Scarlett Johansson was getting the absolute shit kicked out of her because she decided to play Major in Ghost in the Shell. I remember this like it was yesterday because it was only really like 5 years ago. And this whole article came out talking about Tilda Swinton as the Himalayan High Priest in Doctor Strange. People called that out too, right? So what's the problem here? Why is it okay to call out whitewashing, but it's not okay to call out blackwashing? I don't get it. I don't understand it. Fans called this, and look, it wasn't Hollywood that called this out. The fans called this out, and they didn't get the backlash. The fans could have been called misogynists. They could have been called white haters. No, you know, everything was fine. It was okay to call this out. The fans had other ideas. See, it was the fans that brought this stuff up, okay? It wasn't like crazy people. It was the fans, again, talking about this stuff. The decision to cast Scarlett Johansson as its cyborg heroine, originally named Motoko Kusanagi, has not gone down well. This was whitewashing, the fans complained. The role should have gone to a Japanese actor. This particular outrage was taken with a completely different vein, right? Completely different vein. No, you know what? Maybe they have a point. You know, maybe they have a point. You know, we should be more respectful of this original creation by this Japanese manga. Okay, this is a Japanese manga. She was Japanese in the anime as well. But then when we get to Hollywood, all of a sudden it's a white lady. Okay, what happened? How did this go down? And nobody seemed to be upset about it at the time, right? Like, why was it okay to call out this race swap and this skin color swap, but it's not okay to call out the other ones? That's the stuff that you got to start asking yourselves. You're a bunch of hypocrites, Hollywood. You're a bunch of hypocrites, media. Because you guys were writing all of this stuff and championing this stuff. Does Hollywood have an Asian problem? You were championing it then. You were saying it's wrong. You shouldn't be doing skin color swaps whatsoever. This is bad, bad, bad. You said it here. But then all of a sudden, when it becomes rings of power, oh, these guys are racist and they just racist people. And where this all comes from is this idea that everything in life is socially constructed, right? And that the powers that be pick the winners and the losers based on whatever superficial nonsense they want to pick it on. Not only are they patently stupid and showing a like almost childlike understanding of how the world works and how people actually operate, right? Not only that, but they're just trying to play the same card right back, like the same things that they can play about. Oh, it's a social contract. This stuff is wrong because you're just picking winners and losers based on these superficial ideas. Now you're just going to do the same exact thing. Well, we'll pick our winners and losers based on skin color too. Yep, we'll just put black person in there because, you know, it's the idea that we can fix racism by just forcing diversity into the situation. We'll fix racism with more racism. That's basically what they're trying to do, okay? We'll force diversity to redress the balance or whatever this lady was talking about. They don't give a lick about the author. They don't give a lick about the entertainment factor, okay? And they're supposed to be entertainers. They don't give a lick about the audience that they're supposed to be selling this to because they still don't know who did you make this show for. I guarantee you they think they're making this for Tolkien fans, people that are fantasy fans, but the reality is they don't know. They don't know who they're making this for. The only thing, the primary thing that they need to do is make themselves look noble, make themselves look good. That's what they're trying to do. But like I said, and I think like others have said, the way you fix this is with original creations, okay? Original Black creations, original Latino creations, original Asian creations. That's why this was such a problem. Like, this is an original creation. Elevate that. Nope, white chick. That's what messed it up, right? That's what messed it up. This thing bombed in the box office, I think, in large part because of that. You know, people would have got more into it if it's like, okay, this is a Japanese story. Let's check it out. All right. Like, look at anime and manga, for instance. All right. Like, look at anime and manga. These are original pieces, original art by Japanese artists. Okay. Like, I just came back from Anime Matsuri like a month ago, right? And when I was there, what did I see? All right, what did I see while I was walking through Anime Matsuri? That place was chock-a-block with people of every nationality. All right, you had Asians, you had white people, black people, you had Latino people, all shapes and sizes, all different ages. And what were they doing? They were celebrating Japanese culture. Think about that. They were celebrating Japanese culture. They were celebrating the culture of something that they enjoyed and they loved. Hollywood could promote original creators, original creations from various different groups, and then we just see what happens, okay? And then it's up to those creators to create something that the public wants to consume. That's up to them, you know? We saw like a couple of shows that have been made. One was Power. I think Power was by 50 Cent. You also had Empire. You had shows that, you know, a lot of people enjoyed, okay? And those shows lasted for several seasons, okay? It's up to them at that point to, you know, make something that the public wants to watch. And those guys did. But ultimately, the cream rises to the top, right? So if a black artist just comes out, tries to make a comic book, it doesn't work, oh, back to the drawing board. Make something better, okay? You'll have to make something that'll resonate with the people, with the consumer. People ain't just gonna buy it because you're black. You got to make something that's good, okay? And if it's good and it resonates with people and people are into it, hey, you got yourself a winner. But anyway, folks, I always want to go ahead and just touch on that real quick because it just kind of, again, points out the Hollywood racist hypocrisy. These guys are the racists, not the fans, okay? They try to flip it on you, but in reality, they're the racists. And you know, they'll never address this thing right here. They'll never address this. As you notice, they will never address this, okay? And this is something that's just blatant and in your face. We're not fooled, Hollywood. We're not fooled, okay? Everybody sees this for what it is. You guys are the hypocrites and you guys are the racists based on this type of crap. But go ahead, folks. Leave me your thoughts and your opinions in the comments below. And thanks for watching. See you next time.